Right foot in, right foot out. Payne continues the transfer portal hokey pokey while a hopeful locker room gears up for spring football. Hi, I'm Muller, and this is Cobsmacked. This is a Nebraska football channel where we cover the Husker season and team news as it progresses throughout the year. If you enjoyed the content, please consider leaving a like and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the latest Husker news as it comes out. Before we get into the news, I want to mention a few minor changes to the channel. We did drop the podcast from the name. I moved almost entirely to YouTube. So we're not really a podcast anymore. I do still upload them to like Spotify and things like that, but they're only up there for 90 days. Otherwise, I'm focusing almost entirely on the videos themselves. So that being said, some changes to that video format are going to be happening. Instead of one 20-minute video on Monday, we're going to break that up. We're going to have Monday is going to be the news. Where we release like the news that happened in the past week, and then Thursday will just be a Husker related story. So previously I was doing the news first and then I would cover something else later on. For instance, today we will be covering the news, and then Thursday I have a Husker history video planned. So during the season that will swap obviously back to how we were doing it last season, where Monday is the post game analysis and then Thursday will be the preview for the next game. So hopefully the shorter format will be more easily digestible, and that'll also help me keep like a consistent schedule throughout the year. It also lets me focus more editing time on each of these videos. So instead of editing one longer video, I'm editing two shorter ones. So hopefully that'll help up the video quality a little bit. I do plan on doing some change ups to the background here too, and then you won't see the computer or anything like this. So it'll be more professional that way too. So with that out of the way, we will dive right into the news. So the transfer portal strikes again. As mentioned, spring ball starts off this actually today, in fact. So hopefully we'll have more juicy details coming out like in the next week. So it won't be all surrounding, things that have happened previously. It'll be things that are happening currently. So Payne, who entered the transfer portal on December 6th and then opted to return back to Nebraska on December 17th, has once again put his name in the portal as of this past Friday. So joining him is Will Nixon, a third-year freshman wide receiver, which that's odd to say, but with the COVID rules and everything, he's a third-year freshman. But we knew we were going to see people jumping ship. I didn't think we'd see Payne jump in there again after he just retracted his, bid to go into the transfer portal in December. But I mean, he was going to get playtime. I don't see the reasons here. There had to be something there that he didn't like, or maybe he kind of never really pulled completely out of the transfer portal. And who knows? We can speculate all we want, but regardless, he's leaving. But we did know we were going to see guys leave. I thought it would happen more after spring ball started and they kind of started to get a feel for that roster, the depth chart and things like that. So I'm kind of surprised that it happened like 3 days before spring football was supposed to begin. On the other note, we did pick up another quarterback, the 2023 Massachusetts commit, William Watson. He is 6 foot, 185 pounds, and he's a 3-star dual threat quarterback. So just another quarterback to add to the room. Again, he's just a 3-star. I don't know. I haven't looked at any of his film yet. It's a fairly recent commitment, I think 5 days ago. But I mean, lots of people are just mostly making jokes that his initials are like World War III or something like that, WW3. But I mean, that's another guy to add to the competition. So if they know that there's going to be guys coming in consistently, it pushes those guys that are going to be more veterans at that point to, you can't slack off or you're going to lose your job to one of these young guys. Jumping into some other news, though. So Sean Callahan once again had some great interviews during his Husker Chat Live. That's for Husker Online that he does. He interviewed guys like Alante Brown, Gabe Irvin, Thomas Fedoni, Brock Bando, and Heinrich Harburg in like a spring offense preview. And then he interviewed some defensive and then a special teams guy, Ty Robinson, Nick Henrich, Caleb Tanner, Quentin Newsome, and Brian Buschini. Brian Buschini obviously being the special teams guy. He's going to be our kicker and hopefully a much better one than we had last season. But there's plenty of gems in the interviews. So if you haven't seen them, I'll be sure to link that interviews. Well, there's like 2 of them, but I'll be sure to link those below, but go check those out. There's lots of gems and little quotes to take out of there. You can find them on Twitter as well. That's where I didn't even know the interviews were out until I seen them on Twitter. But what I gathered from them overall was there was an overwhelming sense of hope going into spring ball. There was no one shying away from the competition. Everybody knows that there's going to be a competition and that it's going to be a hard-fought competition. Nobody seems to be afraid of that. Obviously, like a couple guys that enter the transfer portal, like they might have seen some things that they didn't want to go through, but everybody else in the locker room seems to be like almost like accepting the challenge and ready for the challenge, and they're going to prove themselves by overcoming that. So that's good to hear. There's just a lot of very positive vibes coming out of the locker room, and that's like a change up. I know spring ball, usually going into it, you have a lot of hype going into it, but like genuinely you feel a positive sense that a lot of these guys are hopeful and looking forward to this next season already. There was one thing I did notice, that there was no real leaders established, at least out of the guys in the interviews. Ty Robinson was kind of there, but there wasn't anybody that like really stood out to me as like he's speaking for the entire locker room. They were mostly just kind of speaking on their personal experiences, so that's a little bit concerning, but I'm sure that will develop in spring especially. But did you get a chance to listen to the interviews? If you did, what are your thoughts on that? Let me know below. These are the things I took from them. Now, mixing those interviews in with some random quotes here and there, it seemed like the offensive line was eager to match Raiola's intensity. Brock Banda was the guy talking for the offensive line, and he said he liked switching up the attacking mentality. It's like from what they were doing previously, which was more of a sit back on the rushing running downs. You're kind of just sitting back and trying to hold a hole open as opposed to like blowing a hole open. And it seems like almost all the guys on the offensive line are appreciating being able to attack and using that strength and power more. And also he mentioned that Raiola was very intense. He's a very intense guy. He knows what he wants to accomplish with us, and he's not going to settle for less. So that's nice to hear from him. Brock Bando did think that he would be going at right guard going into the spring. We did mention, like, during the setup for this season when we did that preview, that he could play right guard there. He could really play anything but center. So flipping over to tight ends, Fedoni doesn't seem like he's going to wait for Travis Vokolek to heal up and get ready. He sounds like he's coming for that starting job right away. He doesn't sound like he's going to wait 6 games, then pop out and overtake him mid-season. He sounds like he wants to take that job right from the get. So he also did mention that Whipple likes to run double tight ends, and so that kind of that make you very excited to see 2 big guys out there, and one blocks and one slips out for a pass, but you never know which one it's going to be. That would be a nightmare for defenses, to have Fedoni on one side and Vokolek on the other. Previously, the past few seasons, we've seen one tight end maybe go out for a pass. Now you have 2 potentially that could go out, or one block, one slip out. There's so many possibilities, and that made my mouth water. You also have Alante Brown as a wide receiver. He multiple times said that he's ready for fight. He's ready to prove this season that he kind of slouched off this last few seasons, that he was kind of overlooked and he was kind of passed over. He's not going to let that happen this year. He knows that there's a lot of competition. He mentioned Trey Palmer coming in, and that Trey Palmer is really set on what he wants to do. He's confident in what he wants to do, but he's going to fight for guys like that for a starting position, or at least a lot of play time. He said he's going to do whatever it takes to help the team, but that includes showing that he's capable at wide receiver. Omar Manning does seem to be the guy in the wide receiver room. Even last year, you started to hear guys talk about how he was pulling more of a leadership role. He was garnering a lot of respect from the locker room wide receivers last season. So I only assume that that's going to grow this season with him stepping up. He seems to be set up for a really good year anyway. But to also show that leadership, that's one of the guys that you can point to and say that guy's going to for sure be a voice in the locker room. I always bring up his voice, but voice in the locker room. But looking at all the defensive players, so when he did do the defensive interviews, it did seem like everybody was pumped to improve upon last season. Even though they knew they were losing a lot of studs on the defensive side, they all looked like they were ready to step up and kind of fill those roles. Even if it took 2 guys to fill the nickel position for JoJo, they all seemed ready to put their best foot forward and to maintain what they were doing last year and even overcome what they were able to accomplish last season. And again, that's nice to hear that they're not just kind of trying to hit a bar. They're trying to overcome it every time. And words are meaningless until action proves it. But we will have enough time to see that in the spring, but it sounds like nobody's second guessing themselves or anything like that, and that's also good to hear. Also, no one seems certain that Thompson is going to start at quarterback. They only talked to Heinrich Harburg, and it sounds like he's gotten kind of big. His lifting partner is Thomas Fedoni, and he's like, I can't slack off just because I'm a quarterback. I have to lift with the tight end. So it sounds like he's pretty physically ready to be a quarterback in the Big Ten. He didn't seem confident that he would get to start this season, but that also didn't lend me to believe that Thompson was the guy to do it. Frost did say that there is an open competition this spring, and that's a genuine feeling in the locker room amongst the quarterbacks, is that it genuinely is open competition, and any guy could win that job. I reiterate that I believe that that's true to an extent, but I do feel like Casey Thompson's going to get a head start in that fair competition, given his experience. I don't think you're going to be able to overlook that experience, and that it's been proven in games that you're going to be able to overlook that and say that one of these other guys is just going to be able to slip in there. They're really going to have to show out this spring to be able to overtake Casey Thompson in that depth chart. But once again, I've got an overwhelming sense of positivity going into the spring with all the interviews that have happened in the last week. There's obviously always hype going into spring ball, but this seems to go a little deeper than that. Like, they always feel like they're going to be able to do good the next season. But with all these guys last season that had so many close games, they felt like they were so close last season, and it's only going to take that small little spark to be able to overcome that. And everybody across the board felt super positive that this season was going to be the year that they were going to be able to win. Like, it wasn't even like a turning the corner type thing. It was just like, now we have to go out and prove it. Like, we should have won more games last season. Now we have to go prove it this season. Given an easier schedule, given the different talent that we've had come in, given the different coaches that we've had come in, I feel like everybody's mixed with that positivity. It's going to be a really good season for us. I always say that, but that's good news indeed. That's going to do it for this week's Monday News Recap. As mentioned, we're going to release a new episode on Thursday where we cover Husker history. It's like the coaching era of Husker history. But going back to the news, do you feel like there's a lot of positivity surrounding the program? Do you feel like that's authentic? Do you feel like that's going to actually, realize itself this spring and going into the fall? Let me know in the comments below, or you can find me personally on Twitter at Aaron Muller EXP, or you can tweet the show at Cobsmacked Media. Notice that is a little different. We switched it up from Cobsmacked Pod to Cobsmacked Media. But as mentioned, we're going to mention that we're going to drop that episode on Thursday, and I'm really excited. I like history. I like Husker football. This is mixing the two, and it's exciting to go back and look at like how we got to where we are. How did Nebraska become a blue blood traditional program powerhouse? And now we've gotten to where we are. So we're going to go through all the coaches and kind of see what they've been able to accomplish, who kind of fell behind and who really lifted the program to new heights. So anyways, until then, go Big Red.